I'm Clara, 35, and my life shifted irrevocably at my father's retirement gala last autumn. The venue shimmered with opulence as my father, Edward, lifted his silver goblet. "My true heirs are the ones who've honored me," he declared, sparking warm applause. Then his icy gaze locked onto mine across the crowded room. "You may go," he said, his voice cutting through the din. Shame seared my core as I rose, unsteady. But then my partner, Nathan, stood beside me. What followed reshaped my understanding of family forever. Before I dive deeper, tell me where you're joining from, and please hit that like button and subscribe to my channel, it really helps to grow. Nathan's stand that night altered everything, and you'll want to know how. This unfolds. I grew up in Willow Creek, a prosperous suburb of Portland, where achievement was demanded, not just admired. Our stately home, with its pristine gardens, looked idyllic from the curb. Inside, it was a different tale. My father, Edward Langley, wasn't merely a corporate titan, he measured worth in triumphs and failures. My mother, Beatrice, was graceful, reserved, and ultimately voiceless against his commanding presence. She'd offer quiet solace after his outbursts but never challenged him. I lost her to leukemia when I was 22, and with her went the only shield between my father's demands and my truth. My siblings shone where I faltered. My brother, Simon, 5 years my senior, followed Edward into corporate law, earning a degree from Stanford and swiftly rising at a top-tier firm. My sister, Victoria, 3 years older, became a neurologist, amassing awards like others collect trinkets. They were the prized offspring, the bearers of our family's legacy, as Edward often proclaimed. Then there was me, from a young age. I was drawn to music and poetry, finding refuge in melodies when reality grew too heavy. I still recall my 10th birthday recital, seated at our polished oak piano in our grand living room, guests gathered around. I played Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata, my fingers quivering. Midway through, I struck a false chord, just one. Edward rose sharply, adjusted his cufflinks, and exited. The silence was deafening, save for the creak of the front door. I finished the piece, tears clouding my sight, but I finished. That moment cemented our dynamic. One error branded me unworthy. University offered a brief escape. I studied music theory at Reed College, defying Edward's push for law school. "You're wasting your life on whimsy," he scoffed when I shared my acceptance letter. I funded my education with grants and weekend jobs, as he refused to support a frivolous degree. Those years built my resilience but deepened my battles with self-doubt and anxiety. I'd achieved something meaningful, yet Edward's voice echoed, questioning why it wasn't greater. Relationships were fleeting. I either chose partners who echoed his critiques or pushed away those who might see my flaws. Everything changed 4 years ago at a cozy bookstore in Salem. I reached for a rare volume of Emily Dickinson's poems, my hand brushing another's. I looked up to meet Nathan Carter, his warm smile easing a knot within me. "You take it," he said. "Anyone chasing Dickinson deserves it more." We talked for hours over tea at a nearby cafe. Nathan, a graphic designer with a love for poetry, truly listened, never interrupting or dismissing my dreams. When I shared my vision of opening a community music school, he didn't scoff. Instead, he asked about my curriculum ideas. 8 months later, with Nathan's support and help with budgeting, I launched Harmony Studio. We offered affordable music lessons to underserved youth, starting with 3 classes in our first year. By year 3, we'd grown to 10 classes, and one of our students won a regional composition award. It wasn't lucrative, but it filled me with pride. Nathan and I wed in a quiet ceremony at the Salem Public Library. Edward didn't attend, citing a critical meeting in Seattle. Simon sent a lavish but detached gift. Victoria left after the vows for a medical seminar. "They don't deserve you," Nathan whispered as we danced among friends and his supportive family. I hadn't spoken to Edward in over 3 years when his retirement gala invitation arrived. After 45 years at Pinnacle Corporation, Edward Langley was stepping down as CEO, celebrated at the Crest, Portland's premier venue. "We can skip it," Nathan said, noting my trembling hands as I read the embossed card. "Maybe he's reaching out," I replied, doubtful but hopeful. "Maybe retirement will soften him." That evening, I stood before our mirror in a deep green dress, far pricier than my usual fare. My hair was styled, my makeup meticulous to mask the exhaustion from sleepless nights. "You're stunning," Nathan said, adjusting his tie. "I feel sick," I admitted. A panic attack struck as we prepared to leave. Nathan sat with me, guiding me through breathing exercises my counselor taught. "We can stay home," he offered. "No," I said, reapplying gloss with shaky hands. "I need to try." As we drove to downtown Portland, Nathan squeezed my hand. "No matter what happens, you're loved for who you are." I nodded, wanting to believe him, but years of conditional affection had taught me otherwise. Deep down, I thought love must Be earned, and tonight was another chance to prove my worth. The crest glowed against Portland's skyline, its elegant facade lit warmly. Nathan handed our keys to the valet, a young woman in a sharp blue uniform who opened my door with grace. My heels clicked on the stone path like a metronome counting down. Breathe, Nathan murmured, his hand steady at my back. The host guided us to the private dining hall, where Edward's gala was in full swing. Crystal chandeliers cast a soft light over 90 guests, most in formal attire, wine glasses in hand. A jazz trio played subtly, nearly lost in the hum of elite conversation. I spotted Simon near the bar, commanding attention at 40. His tailored suit and confident posture mirrored Edward's. His silver cufflinks gleamed as he animated a story, his audience chuckling. Clara, he said, spotting us, his smile cool. Didn't expect you. He shook Nathan's hand briefly before turning back to his group. My younger sister and her partner, he said. Clara does something with music, right? Before I could respond, he pivoted to his colleagues. These are partners from Horizon Ventures. We finalized the Carter deal last month. The talk shifted to law, excluding us. Nathan squeezed my hand as we moved on. We found Victoria by the appetizer table, radiant in a sapphire gown. She was showing off a sapphire ring to 3 women. August wedding in Napa, she said. James wanted Paris, but the logistics were a nightmare. She noticed me, pausing. Clara, you're here. Her eyes scanned my dress. Green's a safe choice. She introduced us to her fiancé, James, a radiologist with a polished demeanor. Their talk centered on their wedding and a recent conference in Vienna before Victoria excused herself for more prominent guests. Your siblings are as expected, Nathan whispered. I reached for a glass of Prosecco when a thin hand touched my arm. Aunt Margaret, Edward's sister, pulled me into a perfumed embrace. Clara, dear, she said, air-kissing my cheek. You look well. Her pause carried judgment. Margaret always echoed Edward's standards. She leaned in. Make him proud tonight. It matters to him with his peers here. Before I could reply, she moved to Victoria, gushing over the ring. The hall exuded wealth. Tables held orchids in silver vases, the bar offered rare vintages. Staff circulated with trays of smoked salmon, truffle bruschetta, and petite tarts. Conversation swirled around investments, yachts, and elite schools. I spotted Edward across the room, commanding a group of executives. At 68, he remained formidable, his white hair and sharp features signaling authority. He laughed. A warmth I rarely saw aimed at me. Want me to join you to say hi? Nathan asked. I shook my head. I need to do this alone. I approached, heart pounding. Edward saw me but continued talking until I stood awkwardly at the group's edge. Clara, he said finally, his tone neutral. You came. Congratulations on retiring, I said, offering a gift box with a leather-bound journal Nathan helped choose. Thank you, he said, setting it aside unopened. Gentlemen, my youngest, Clara. She's in music, runs a little school. I added, we just had a student win a regional composition prize. His face didn't shift. Clara's always chased dreams, he said. Unlike her siblings with real careers. The men laughed. Simon just closed a $50 million deal, and Victoria's engaged to Dr. James Thornton, head of radiology at Cascade Medical. My achievements were dismissed. Good to see you, I said softly, retreating before tears fell. Nathan handed me a glass of wine. That bad? He asked. The usual, I replied, sipping deeply. As the cocktail hour continued, Edward moved through the room, accepting praise and sharing stories of his storied career. His warmth toward others highlighted his coldness to me. We were seated at a distant table with minor relatives and junior staff, far from the main table where Edward, Simon, and Victoria sat. I'm Nathan Carter, Clara's partner, Nathan said brightly, ignoring the slight. A woman across from us asked, You're Edward's daughter? The one not in law or medicine? I nodded, forcing a smile. I run a music school. How quaint, she said, her tone patronizing. The meal was exquisite, roasted quail, fine wine, but it tasted hollow. Edward's laughter from the main table, his hand on Simon's shoulder, deepened my isolation. Nathan's quiet support kept me grounded. Speeches began after dessert. The company president praised Edward's vision. A colleague shared light-hearted tales. Simon spoke of Edward's legacy, subtly centering himself. Then Edward rose, commanding silence. My heart raced, hoping for a nod to me. Thank you all, he began. This room holds friends who've shared my 50-year journey at Pinnacle. He spoke of industry shifts, triumphs, and his late wife, Beatrice. She was my anchor, he said, his voice breaking slightly. I teared up, rarely hearing him mention her. But a man's legacy is his heirs, he continued, gesturing to Simon and Victoria. Simon's a legal titan, Victoria saves lives with groundbreaking surgeries. He raised his glass. My true heirs make me proud. Applause erupted. Then his eyes found me. You may go, he said clearly. The room hushed. Heads turned. Shame burned as I stood, trembling, his words a public disownment. The silence in the Crest's banquet hall was suffocating, Edward's words, you may go, echoing like a verdict. My legs trembled as I stood, the weight of 90 pairs of eyes searing into me. The elegant room blurred, my vision narrowing to a tunnel of humiliation. My father, Edward Langley, had just publicly cast me out, declaring me no true heir in front of Portland's corporate elite. My chest tightened, each breath a struggle against the rising tide of shame. Aunt Margaret's hand flew to her mouth, her shock evident even through her usual alignment with Edward. Victoria, my sister, stared at her wine glass, avoiding my gaze. Simon, my brother, wore a faint smirk, as if Edward's cruelty was a sharp quip. The murmurs of the crowd grew, a low hum of confusion and realization. I gripped the table's edge, fighting the urge to flee or collapse into tears. I wouldn't give Edward the satisfaction of seeing me break. If I had to leave, I'd do so. With what little composure I could summon, then came a sound that shifted everything, the deliberate scrape of a chair beside me. Nathan rose, his movements calm but resolute. I glanced at him through the haze of my distress, expecting embarrassment. But his face held quiet fury. The room's murmurs intensified, a ripple of surprise at this unexpected defiance. Edward's expression hardened, his jaw tightening. He hadn't anticipated resistance, certainly not from Nathan, whom he'd always dismissed as insignificant. A mere appendage to my failures. Sit down, Edward commanded, his voice sharp, addressing Nathan directly for perhaps the first time that evening. This doesn't involve you. But Nathan remained standing, his posture unwavering, his gaze locked with Edward's across the room. The tension crackled, palpable, as the guests fell silent, sensing a shift in the carefully orchestrated evening. Nathan reached for his wine glass and a spoon, the soft clink of metal on crystal slicing through the stillness, a universal call for attention. Edward's face flushed with anger at this breach of his control. This was his night, his stage, his display of dominance. Nathan's action was a quiet but unmistakable challenge. What are you doing? Edward demanded, his authority fraying. Nathan ignored him, waiting until every eye was on him, the room frozen in anticipation. His hand was steady as he set the spoon down, his expression composed yet fierce. I'd never seen this side of him, this resolute, unyielding strength. I'd like to make a toast, Nathan began, his voice clear, carrying to every corner of the hall, to the woman Edward Langley failed to recognize. Gasps punctuated the silence. My heart pounded, a mix of dread and awe. An older man at a nearby table muttered, "Good heavens," to his companion. For those who don't know me, Nathan continued, I'm Nathan Carter, Clara's partner. Since Edward has shared his view tonight, I'd like to share the truth about the daughter he just dismissed. Edward stepped forward, his voice low but menacing. Enough. Security will remove you. Nathan's response was even. Go ahead. But I wonder how the Portland Tribune would cover Edward Langley having his daughter and her partner ejected from his retirement gala. I'm sure your colleagues would find that compelling. Edward froze, his eyes scanning the room, aware of his peers' scrutiny. His reputation was his currency, and Nathan had struck at its core. 5 years ago, Nathan continued, unfazed, Clara founded Harmony Studio with her own savings and a modest grant, without any family support. He paused, letting the words settle. Last year, one of their students won a regional composition award, and their program was featured in a national education journal. Whispers of interest spread through the crowd. I hadn't known about the journal feature. Nathan must have learned it that day, planning to surprise me. What Edward omitted is that Harmony Studio has given a voice to young musicians from marginalized communities, refugees, foster children, kids from Salem's toughest neighborhoods. Their outreach program has provided free instruments to over 4,000 students. I felt detached, as if watching a play unfold. Nathan was defending me, listing achievements Edward had ignored or never bothered to learn. While Simon was thriving in corporate law and Victoria was advancing medicine, Nathan said, his voice sharpening, Clara took a semester off college to care for her mother, Beatrice, during her leukemia treatment. Clara read poetry to her when she was too weak to hold a book. My throat tightened at the memory of those quiet, painful hours. What Edward doesn't know, Nathan added, his gaze unwavering, is that the deposit for Simon's first Seattle condo came from Clara's savings. She gave it to him when he faced financial ruin after a failed investment deal he kept from his father. Simon's face paled. That was our secret, a rare moment of sibling connection when he'd come to me, desperate. I'd helped because He was family, expecting nothing in return for 35 years, Nathan said, addressing Edward directly. You've told Clara she's not enough, too emotional, too creative, too different from your mold. You've withheld love, used approval as a weapon, and tonight, you tried to humiliate her before everyone you value. He turned to the guests. But real family doesn't demand perfection. Real family supports you, sees you, stands by you. Especially when it's hard. Edward's voice broke through. You have no right to speak this way before my peers. Nathan didn't flinch. I know a man who publicly rejects his daughter at his own gala isn't celebrating a legacy. He's exposing its flaws. The silence was absolute, the clink of ice in glasses the only sound. Nathan turned to me, his eyes softening. Clara is the strongest person I know, not because she met your impossible standards, but because she survived them and became herself. He raised his glass. To Edward Langley, for showing us the kind of parent we'll never be. He set the glass down and took my hand, his warmth grounding me as the room spun. We walked toward the exit, our steps echoing on the marble floor. No one spoke. No one stopped us. Edward's voice rang out as we neared the doors. If you leave now, don't return. You're done, both of you. We didn't pause. An older woman, one of Edward's longtime associates, gave a subtle nod as we passed, a flicker of respect. The doors closed, muffling the eruption of voices behind us. The valet, sensing the drama, avoided eye contact as she fetched our car. The cool autumn air hit my face, a relief after the hall's stifling tension. Nathan opened my door, and we drove off, the crest fading in the rearview like a bad dream. Are you okay? He asked, his voice soft in the car's darkness. I was shattered, humiliated, yet oddly unburdened. I don't know, I said. Honestly. But I think I could be. We drove to our Salem apartment in silence, leaving behind decades of expectations, moving toward something undefined but vital. The drive back to our Salem apartment was a blur, the city lights streaking past like distant stars. Nathan's hand rested on mine, a steady anchor as my mind churned with the echoes of Edward's words, "You may go." The public rejection at the crest had stripped away any lingering hope of my father's approval, leaving me raw and exposed. Yet Nathan's fierce defense had planted a seed of something new, something I couldn't yet name. As we entered our modest home, the dam of emotions I'd held back broke. I collapsed onto our worn couch, sobs tearing through me, decades of suppressed pain erupting. Nathan knelt beside me, his arms enveloping me as his shirt dampened with my tears. I'm so sorry, I gasped between sobs. I'm sorry you had to do that. I'm not, he said firmly. I've wanted to call out Edward for 4 years. He doesn't get to define you anymore. We stayed up until 2 in the morning, dissecting the gala's wreckage. The shock of Edward's cruelty mingled with grief for the father I'd never have, anger at his calculated dismissal, and a tentative relief that the truth was finally bare. Did I go too far? Nathan asked, a rare note of doubt in his voice as we prepared for bed. You stood up for me when I couldn't, I replied. No one's ever done that. Sleep came in fragments, interrupted by my phone's relentless buzzing. Edward called 9 times between midnight and dawn, leaving voicemails laced with fury, demanding apologies and threatening disinheritance. I let each call go unanswered, the glowing screen casting shadows in our bedroom like a storm on the horizon. Morning brought a text from Victoria, "You always make it about you. Dad's night was ruined because of you and Nathan." Typical. Her words twisted the knife, framing me as the villain who'd stolen Edward's spotlight, not the daughter he'd publicly disowned. At 10:30, Simon called, and I nearly ignored it, bracing for more blame. But curiosity won. That was some performance last night, he said, his tone guarded. I didn't plan it, I replied, stiff. A pause. I know. Another pause. Is it true about the condo money? Yes, I said. Why didn't you ever hold it over me, he asked. All these years, even when I wasn't there for you. Because that's not why I helped, I answered. Silence stretched, then Simon's voice softened. What Dad did wasn't right. I've never seen him that cruel. It wasn't an apology, but it was the closest to support Simon had offered in years. After we hung up, I stared at the phone, grappling with this faint shift in our dynamic. Monday at Harmony Studio, my colleague, Rachel, noticed my haggard expression and pulled me into her office. You look like you've been through a storm, she said, handing me tea. What happened? I gave her the abbreviated version of the gala. Her response was swift. Take a week off. We'll handle the new class schedules. I can't just stop because of family drama, I protested. Clara, she said gently, if you'd sprained your ankle, you'd rest. This is a deeper injury. Give it time. I agreed to 4 days, spending them oscillating between crying spells and staring blankly at old movies. Nathan worked from home, his presence a quiet comfort as I processed the emotional earthquake. The world outside churned on, indifferent to my inner turmoil. On Wednesday, the doorbell startled me. Aunt Margaret stood there, clutching a thick envelope, her usual confidence replaced by unease. "May I come in?" she asked. I hesitated. Then let her in. She sat stiffly on our couch, declining tea. "What Edward did was unforgivable," she said abruptly. "I should have spoken up that night. I've enabled his behavior for too long, convincing myself it was just his way." She handed me the envelope. Inside were photographs I'd never seen: my mother, Beatrice, glowing while pregnant with me, a young me giggling on Edward's lap, a family trip to Astoria where he taught me to skip stones, his smile patient. "He wasn't always like this," Margaret said softly. "After Beatrice's first diagnosis, Edward changed. He became obsessed with control, with tangible success, as if perfection could ward off loss." I studied the photos, glimpses of a father I didn't know. "That doesn't justify him," I said. "No," she agreed. "But you should know he once loved you without conditions." After she left, I tucked the photos into a drawer, unable to linger on them but unwilling to discard them. The gala's fallout rippled through our extended family. Cousins I rarely contacted texted, curious for details. Edward's brother-in-law called, saying he'd always thought Edward was too harsh. The family narrative, long dominated by Edward's standards, began to fracture. 6 days after the gala, Edward's name on my phone triggered a panic attack so intense Nathan guided me through breathing exercises for 15 minutes. That evening, he researched therapists specializing in family trauma. "You need more than I can offer," he said, showing me a list. I chose Dr. Sarah Bennett, her warm yet direct demeanor and her online profile inspiring trust. My first session was set for the following Monday. "What if this breaks me?" I asked Nathan that night. "What if I'm more damaged than I think?" "You're not damaged," he said, pulling me close. "You're hurt. That's different. Sometimes things must break to heal, right?" The next day, I returned to Harmony Studio, throwing myself into lesson plans to avoid my thoughts. Rachel checked in often, her concern genuine but unobtrusive. That afternoon, an unexpected email arrived from Edward's former colleague, Evelyn, the woman who'd nodded to me as we left the Crest. "I'm moving to Eugene soon," she wrote. "Edward and I parted ways after he berated a young staff member, reminding me of how he treated you. If you and Nathan are settled, perhaps we could meet for tea. Chosen family often matters more." Her words stirred a flicker of hope, a sign that not all of Edward's world saw me as a failure. As I walked home, the weight of the photos Margaret gave me lingered. They painted a father capable of warmth, now buried under decades of rigidity. I wondered if that man still existed, or if he'd been lost to the same fear that drove his cruelty. That night, Nathan and I discussed leaving Salem, maybe moving to Eugene for a fresh start. The idea felt both daunting and liberating, a chance to build a life free from Edward's shadow. As I fell asleep, I realized I hadn't checked my phone for Edward's messages all day, a small but significant step toward reclaiming myself. The week after Edward's retirement gala at the Crest felt like navigating a fog. The sting of his public dismissal, "You may go," lingered, but Nathan's unwavering defense had sparked a shift within me, a faint glimmer of self-worth struggling to surface. As I sat in Dr. Sarah Bennett's office in Salem on Monday, the weight of 35 years pressed against my chest. Her office was warm, with soft lighting and a bookshelf lined with titles on trauma and healing. "Tell me about your father," Dr. Bennett said, her voice calm but direct. For 50 minutes, I poured out stories I'd barely voiced, even to Nathan: Edward's relentless criticism, the piano recital where he walked out after my single wrong note at 10, the way his approval always felt like a prize just out of reach. Dr. Bennett listened, jotting occasional notes, her expression free of judgment. "Clara," she said as the session closed, "have you heard of narcissistic parenting?" That question opened a door to understanding patterns I'd normalized, marking the start of a 4-month journey to reclaim my sense of self. Back home, Nathan was researching Eugene, our potential new home. "It's got a vibrant arts scene," he said, showing me listings for cozy bungalows and community centers where Harmony Studio could expand. "Are we escaping?" I asked, half joking, as we scrolled through photos of tree-lined streets. "We're building something new," he replied. "There's a difference." His optimism was infectious, but doubt gnawed at me. Could I truly leave behind the weight of Edward's expectations? That evening, my phone buzzed with another voicemail from Edward, his 10th since the gala, demanding I apologize for Nathan's disrespectful display. I deleted it without listening, a small act of defiance that felt both terrifying and freeing. Tuesday brought an unexpected visitor to Harmony Studio. My father's former assistant, Laura, now retired, appeared at my office door, her silver hair pulled into a neat bun. "I hope I'm not intruding," she said, her voice steady but kind. "Edward doesn't know I'm here." Over coffee at a nearby cafe, she revealed a side of my father I'd suspected but never fully grasped. His demands weren't just for you, she said. He'd berate staff for minor errors, take credit for their ideas, hold grudges over nothing. After your husband's speech, for colleagues told me privately they'd always found Edward too harsh on you. I stirred my tea, processing her words. Why tell me now? I asked. Laura leaned forward. Because I watched you shrink under his impossible standards for 16 years, blaming yourself for his inability to show love. I stayed quiet then. I won't now. Her words were a lifeline, validation that my pain wasn't imagined. That night, I shared Laura's visit with Nathan. It's like the world is confirming what you said at the crest, I told him. I'm not the problem. He squeezed my hand. You never were. We spent hours discussing our move to Eugene, creating a spreadsheet of neighborhoods and potential studio spaces. A tech firm in Eugene had reached out to Nathan, offering a role designing software for music education platforms, with a salary bump and flexible hours. It feels like the universe is aligning, he said, grinning at the offer letter. We set a 7-month timeline for the move, giving us time to transition Harmony Studio and tie up loose ends in Salem. Family ripples continued. My mother's cousin, Helen, called from Olympia, inviting Nathan and me to visit. Beatrice would have hated how Edward treated you, she said. You're so like her, creative, sensitive. She sent scans of my mother's old sketchbooks, filled with vibrant drawings I'd never seen. Learning Beatrice had been an artist before marrying Edward felt like uncovering a piece of myself. I'd always thought my love for music was an outlier in our pragmatic family. Now it felt like an inheritance. I placed her sketches beside the photos Aunt Margaret had given me, a growing collection of a past that held more warmth than I'd known. At Harmony Studio, I threw myself into a new project, a music mentorship program for at-risk youth. It was ambitious, but the work grounded me, turning pain into purpose. During a staff meeting, Rachel pulled me aside. You're different, she said. More focused, but lighter somehow. I smiled, realizing I hadn't second-guessed myself all morning, a small victory. That evening, Simon called, his tone less guarded than before. I've been thinking about the gala, he said. I should have said something when Dad told you to leave. His words caught me off guard. Why now? I asked. Because I'm tired of being his echo, he admitted. I started seeing a counselor. It's making me see how much I've chased his approval. It wasn't reconciliation, but it was a step, a crack in the wall between us. Victoria, however, doubled down. Her latest text read, You and Nathan humiliated Dad in front of everyone. My wedding's in September. Don't expect an invite if you can't behave. I stared at the message, recognizing her loyalty to Edward's narrative. I sent a polite reply, wishing her well, and left it at that. Her rejection stung, but it didn't devastate me as it once would have. Dr. Bennett's sessions were helping me see that my siblings' roles in our family's dysfunction weren't my burden to carry. Friday brought another surprise. While preparing for a community recital, I received an email from a local arts council, nominating Harmony Studio for a Regional Innovation Award. The news felt like a counterpoint to Edward's dismissal of my work as a hobby. I shared it with Nathan, who lifted me in a hug. This is you, he said. Not Edward's version of you. That night, I wrote in a journal Dr. Bennett suggested, pouring out my anger at Edward's cruelty and my fear of carrying his judgment forever. I hate how you made me feel worthless, I wrote, the pen shaking. I hate that I still want you to see me. The act was cathartic, a release of pain I'd held too long. As we packed for a weekend trip to Scout Eugene, I found the cracked frame from our wedding photo, damaged when Edward slammed our door after his last visit. I'd kept it, replacing the glass. This stays, I told Nathan, setting it on our shelf. A reminder of what we've overcome. He nodded. The past shapes us, but it doesn't own us. As we drove toward Eugene, I realized I hadn't checked my phone for Edward's messages in days. The ache of his rejection was fading, replaced by a growing sense of agency. I wasn't free yet, but I was moving toward it, step by unsteady step. 5 months after Edward's retirement gala at the Crest, where his words, "You may go," had shattered my illusions, I sat in Dr. Sarah Bennett's Salem office, tracing the threads of my unraveling past. Therapy had become a lifeline, a space to untangle the knots of Edward's conditional love. You're starting to separate his voice from yours, Dr. Bennett observed during our weekly session. But healing isn't a straight path. Some days, his criticism will feel louder. She was right. Mornings still came when I woke convinced I was fundamentally lacking, or when a student's minor critique at Harmony Studio sent me spiraling. Yet, there were also moments of clarity, like when I led a recital without imagining Edward's scowl. You're building a new narrative, Dr. Bennett said. One where you're enough as you are. That idea felt fragile but real, like A melody I was learning to play by heart. At home, Nathan and I were finalizing plans to move to Eugene. We'd found a craftsman-style house with a spacious attic, ideal for a new Harmony studio office. The deposit was placed, making our fresh start tangible. 6 weeks until we're there, Nathan said, pinning a photo of the house to our fridge. His new job at the Eugene tech firm was set to start in 2 months, giving us time to settle. Harmony Studios' transition was underway. We'd hired a local coordinator to manage Salem classes while I scouted Eugene community centers. The logistics were daunting, but each step felt like a declaration of independence from Edward's shadow. Are we crazy? I asked Nathan one night, surrounded by packing boxes. Maybe, he grinned. But it's the good kind of crazy. Family dynamics continued to shift. Simon's calls grew more frequent, our conversations less stilted. During one, he admitted, I've been in therapy for 6 months. That night at the Crest made me see how much I've molded myself to Dad's expectations. It's exhausting. His vulnerability surprised me. I was jealous of you, he added. You chose your own path, even when it cost you. I never had that courage. I nearly dropped my phone. Jealous? You were Edward's pride. I was his mirror, Simon corrected. You were yourself. We talked for an hour, sharing childhood memories that reframed old wounds. He wasn't an ally yet, but he was no longer an adversary. Victoria, however, remained distant. Her wedding invitation arrived, addressed only to Nathan, with a note. Keep it civil. We declined, sending a thoughtful gift from her registry. Her allegiance to Edward hurt, but Dr. Bennett helped me see it as her choice, not my failure. You can't control how others respond to your boundaries, she said. You can only honor your own. That perspective eased the sting, letting me focus on those who chose to stay connected. My mother's cousin, Helen, visited from Olympia, bringing more of Beatrice's sketchbooks. Your mother wanted to be a painter, Helen said, showing me vibrant landscapes. She gave it up for Edward's vision of family. The sketches felt like a bridge to Beatrice, reinforcing my artistic roots. At Harmony Studio, our mentorship program for at-risk youth gained traction. A local news outlet featured our work, highlighting a 12-year-old student whose composition was selected for a state festival. The recognition countered Edward's dismissal of my little music hobby. I shared the article with Dr. Bennett, who smiled. You're not just teaching music. You're creating space for others to be seen. That night, I wrote another unsent letter to Edward, as Dr. Bennett suggested. I hate how you made me feel invisible, I scrawled, tears smudging the ink. I hate that I spent 35 years chasing your approval. The words released a weight, loosening his grip on my self-worth. An unexpected encounter came midweek at a Salem Arts Fair, where I was promoting Harmony Studio. A woman approached my booth, her face familiar but unplaceable. Clara? I'm Diane, Edward's colleague from Pinnacle. She was the one who'd nodded as we left the Crest. I'm in Eugene now, she said. What your husband said that night, it resonated. Edward's perfectionism hurt a lot of us. She shared stories of his harshness toward staff, echoing Laura's revelations. You're doing something meaningful here, she added, gesturing to our booth. Don't let him take that from you. Her words bolstered my resolve, a reminder that my value wasn't tied to Edward's judgment. That evening, Nathan and I celebrated the arts fair's success with takeout and wine. I didn't think about Edward once today, I said, surprised. Nathan raised his glass. To you, claiming your space. As we packed more boxes, I found the wedding photo with the cracked frame, now repaired. It felt like a metaphor for my journey, broken but mended, stronger at the seams. The next day, a panic attack hit, triggered by a client's email criticizing a class schedule. Dr. Bennett had warned of setbacks, so I breathed through it, Nathan coaching me gently. It's just a wave, he said. Let it pass. It did, faster than before, a sign of progress. Simon's next call brought news that unsettled me. Dad had a health scare, a mild heart issue, he said. He's fine, but he's been quieter lately. Asked about you once. I paused, unsure how to feel. What do you want me to do with that? I asked. Nothing, Simon said. Just thought you should know. I thanked him, but the information sat heavy. Edward's vulnerability didn't erase his cruelty, yet it humanized him. Dr. Bennett suggested exploring medication to manage my panic attacks. It's a tool, not a fix, she said. After research, I started a low-dose anti-anxiety prescription. Within 3 weeks, the constant hum of dread softened, and I slept through the night, a small but profound shift. As our move neared, we visited Eugene again, signing the lease on our craftsman house. The attic skylight would be perfect for music lessons, and the backyard promised summer recitals. Back in Salem, I expanded Harmony Studios' mission, launching a songwriting workshop for trauma survivors. It felt personal, a way to channel my pain into purpose. Rachel noticed the change. "You're leading with confidence," she said. "It's inspiring." That night, I dreamed of Beatrice, painting beside me, her smile free of Edward's shadow. Waking, I felt her presence, a quiet affirmation that I was enough. As we packed the last of our Salem life, I realized Edward's voicemails had stopped. His silence was no longer a wound but a fact, and I was ready to write the next chapter in Eugene. 6 months after Edward's crushing dismissal at the Crest, "You may go," I stood in our Eugene kitchen, unpacking the last box from our move. The Craftsman House, with its skylit attic now home to Harmony Studios' new office, felt like a promise kept. Sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating the repaired wedding photo on the mantel, its cracked frame a reminder of what we'd overcome. Nathan, settling into his role at the Eugene tech firm, was outside setting up a grill for our first housewarming party. The move had been a leap, but Eugene's vibrant arts community and distance from Salem's ghosts made it feel right. Dr. Sarah Bennett's sessions, now bi-weekly via video, continued to anchor me. "You're rewriting your story," she said in our latest call. "But expect echoes of Edward's voice. They'll fade with time." Life in Eugene was taking shape. Harmony Studios' songwriting workshop for trauma survivors launched with 8 participants, their raw lyrics mirroring my own journey. A local paper covered our opening, calling us a beacon for healing through music. The praise felt like a rebuttal to Edward's sneer at my hobby. Nathan's job designing music education software dovetailed with my work, and we'd spend evenings brainstorming ways to merge our projects. "We're building something real," he said, sketching app interfaces on napkins. Yet, old wounds surfaced. A critical review of our workshop triggered a panic attack, but my medication and breathing exercises, honed with Dr. Bennett, eased it quickly. "Progress, not perfection," I reminded myself, a mantra from therapy. Family ties evolved unevenly. Simon's visits to Eugene, twice in 3 months, marked a warming bond. He brought gifts for our home, a hand-carved music stand, a set of poetry books. "Therapy's kicking my ass," he confessed during his last stay, cradling a coffee mug. "I spent 38 years being Dad's clone. You were braver, Clara, choosing your path." His admission reframed our childhood rivalry, softening years of resentment. Victoria, however, stayed loyal to Edward. Her wedding photos arrived via email, no message attached. I felt a pang but let it pass, recognizing her distance as her choice. Aunt Margaret called weekly, her rift with Edward growing since she'd chosen to support me. "He's lonelier now," she said. His heart scare shook him, but he won't admit it. I listened, unsure what to do with the information. A breakthrough came at a Eugene music festival, where I performed a piece I'd written about my mother, Beatrice. Halfway through, I realized I wasn't scanning the crowd for Edward's disapproval. The applause felt earned, not stolen. "You owned that stage," Nathan said afterward, as we celebrated with local musicians. Dr. Bennett noted the shift. "In our next session, your voice is drowning out his," she said. "You're claiming your space." That week, I wrote another unsent letter to Edward, the words less angry, more resolute. "I'm done letting you define me. I'm enough." The act felt like shedding a heavy coat, leaving me lighter. Then came an unexpected encounter. While visiting a friend at Eugene's community hospital after a minor procedure, I turned a corner and nearly collided with Edward. He looked frail, his face slightly ashen, a cane in hand, evidence of the heart issue Simon mentioned. "Clara," he said, his voice rough, startled. "Dad," I replied, my calm surprising me. "Simon said you'd had health trouble. I hope you're okay." He nodded curtly. "Just a follow-up. Nothing major." We stood in the sterile corridor, hospital staff weaving around us like currents around stones. "You look different," he said, his eyes scanning me. I touched my slightly rounded belly, a secret Nathan and I had just confirmed. "I'm pregnant. Due in October." His face flickered, surprise, perhaps regret, quickly masked. "Congratulations," he said stiffly. "Thank you," I replied, silence stretched, heavy with unspoken history. I waited, half expecting an apology, a crack in his armor. But his posture stayed rigid, his expression guarded. "I should go," I said finally. "My friend's waiting." He nodded. "Regards to Nathan." The pleasantry was so ordinary, so at odds with his gala cruelty, I almost smiled. I walked away, my steps steady, no racing pulse or tunnel vision. The encounter left me thoughtful, not broken. "He'll never change," I told Nathan that night, curled on our couch. "Not truly." "Probably not," Nathan agreed. "Are you okay with that?" I nodded slowly. "I am. His limits aren't my fault." Our housewarming party brought together new friends and chosen family. Simon arrived, hugging me tightly, his girlfriend, Emily, a social worker, at his side. Aunt Margaret flew in, her presence a quiet defiance of Edward's control. Harmony Studio colleagues mingled with Nathan's tech team, laughter filling our backyard. As dusk fell, Nathan raised a glass. To Eugene, to new beginnings, and to Clara, who's stronger than she knows. Glasses clinked, and I felt a warmth I'd once sought from Edward, now found in the circle. Later, Simon helped clear plates, uncharacteristically domestic. I told Dad about the baby, he said. He didn't say much, just asked for a photo. I nodded, neither eager nor pained. Edward was a fading figure in my story, no longer. Its center. The next week, at a Eugene bookstore, I got a text from Victoria, "Dad's asking for you." Probably nothing. It echoed Simon's earlier news, but I saw it for what it was, Victoria shifting the burden of our estrangement onto me. After talking with Nathan, I replied, "Thanks for the update." Wishing him well. It was neutral, acknowledging his humanity without reopening old wounds. Dr. Bennett praised the boundary. "You're choosing yourself," she said. Meanwhile, Harmony Studio won the Regional Innovation Award, and we celebrated with a student showcase. Watching a shy teen perform her original song, I felt a purpose Edward could never diminish. As autumn painted Eugene's trees gold and crimson, we prepared for our baby. Simon sent a crib, Aunt Margaret knitted blankets. I found Beatrice's sketches again, now framed in our nursery. "You'd love this," I whispered to her memory, feeling her artist spirit in me. Edward's health updates reached me indirectly, but they no longer dictated my peace. I was building a life rooted in love, not approval, and for the first time, I believed I was truly enough. 7 months after Edward's public rejection at the Crest, I stood in our Eugene nursery, folding tiny onesies under the soft glow of a moon-shaped lamp. At 6 months pregnant, my belly was a gentle curve, a daily reminder of the new life Nathan and I were creating. Our craftsman house had become a home, its attic now bustling with Harmony Studio songwriting workshops and music lessons. Eugene's welcoming community had embraced us, and the distance from Salem, both physical and emotional, had freed me from Edward's shadow. Dr. Sarah Bennett's therapy sessions, now monthly, continued to guide me. "You're not just surviving," she said in our last call. "You're thriving, Clara. That's the work of healing." Yet, she cautioned, old wounds can resurface, especially with big changes like motherhood. Harmony Studio flourished. Our trauma survivors workshop growing to 12 participants. One student's song about overcoming abuse was featured at a local arts festival, earning a standing ovation. "You gave me a voice," she told me, her words a bomb against Edward's dismissal of my work. We'd also launched a free music camp for low-income kids, funded by a grant Nathan helped secure. "This is bigger than us," he said, reviewing camp schedules. His tech job, designing music education apps, complemented our mission, and we'd started collaborating on a digital platform for our students' compositions. Despite these triumphs, doubts crept in. Late at night, I'd whisper to Nathan, "What if I'm like Edward? What if I can't love our child unconditionally?" He'd hold me close. "You're asking that question. That's why you won't be him." Family ties deepen with those who chose us. Simon visited monthly, his therapy softening his edges. During a weekend stay, he helped paint the nursery, confessing, "I used to think Dad's approval was everything. Now I see how it hollowed me out." He brought a mobile of musical notes for the baby, a gesture that moved me. "You're going to be a great mom," he said, hugging me awkwardly but sincerely. Aunt Margaret sent weekly care packages, knitted booties, herbal teas, and her calls were filled with stories of Beatrice, my mother, whose sketches now hung in our home. "She'd be so proud," Margaret said, her voice thick. Her estrangement from Edward had solidified, a choice to prioritize her values over his control. Victoria, however, remained distant. A holiday card arrived, signed only by her and her husband, James. I felt a twinge but let it go, focusing on those who stayed. A pivotal therapy session came after a dream where Edward loomed over the nursery, criticizing my every move. "I'm terrified I'll pass on his damage," I told Dr. Bennett. She suggested a new exercise, writing a letter to my unborn child, promising the love I never received. That night, I wrote, "You'll never have to earn my love. You're enough just as you are." Tears fell, but they were cleansing, a vow to break Edward's cycle. The letter joined my unsent ones to him, a growing archive of my healing. My medication continued to steady me, and panic attacks were rarer, triggered only by major stressors like a grant deadline. "You're rewiring your nervous system," Dr. Bennett said. "That's powerful." An unexpected ripple came via email from Diane, Edward's former colleague now living in Eugene. "I'm hosting a book club," she wrote. "Would you and Nathan join? Your story at the Crest inspired me to set boundaries with toxic people." We attended, finding a warm group who became fast friends. Diane shared more about Edward's workplace tyranny, reinforcing that his cruelty wasn't personal but systemic. You broke free, she said. That's rare. Her words echoed Laura's from months ago, building my confidence. Harmony. Studio's Regional Innovation Award led to a feature in a national arts magazine, and I spoke at a conference about music as therapy. For the first time, I didn't brace for Edward's imagined critique. You were electric, Nathan said. Afterward, as we celebrated with colleagues. Simon's latest call brought news of Edward. He's seeing a therapist, he said, sounding stunned. His heart scare and your absence hit him. He's still stubborn, but he mentioned missing you. I paused, the news stirring mixed feelings. I'm glad he's getting help, I said. But I'm not ready to reconnect. Simon respected my boundary. Fair enough. Just wanted you to know. The information didn't derail me as it once would have. Edward's journey was his own, mine was here, with Nathan and our growing family. Dr. Bennett noted this shift. You're detaching with compassion, she said. That's strength. As October neared, we prepared for our daughter's arrival. The nursery was ready, adorned with Beatrice's sketches and gifts from Simon and Margaret. Nathan and I took parenting classes, laughing through diaper drills. We're a team, he said, easing my fears of failing as a mother. Harmony Studios camp was a success, with 20 kids performing original songs. Watching them, I felt a purpose Edward could never diminish. That night, I found the cracked wedding frame, now a cherished symbol. It's us, I told Nathan, tracing the glass. Broken, but whole. A week later, Margaret visited, bringing a quilt embroidered with musical notes. Over tea, she shared that Edward was dating a librarian, someone patient with his gruffness. Good for him, I said, meaning it. His happiness no longer tethered mine. At our baby shower, Simon and Emily joined new Eugene friends, their laughter filling our backyard. Nathan toasted, to our daughter, to Clara's courage, and to the family we've built. I looked around, surrounded by love that didn't demand perfection, and felt complete. 2 days later, I received a letter from Edward, his handwriting shaky. Clara, I'm sorry for the crest. I was wrong. It was brief, no excuses, but it stirred a quiet ache. I discussed it with Dr. Bennett. You don't owe him a response, she said. Honor your needs. I chose not to reply, not out of anger, but because my peace didn't depend on his remorse. I tucked the letter with the others, a relic of a past I was outgrowing. As I rocked in the nursery chair, I whispered to my daughter, you're my legacy, not his. Eugene's golden autumn wrapped around us, and I knew, with certainty, I was enough. 8 months after Edward's devastating rejection at the crest, you may go, I stood in our Eugene home, cradling our newborn daughter, Nora Beatrice Carter, born after 18 hours of labor. Her tiny face, with eyes that echoed my mother's, filled me with a love so fierce it eclipsed the pain of that night. The autumn light filtered through cherry blossoms outside, casting patterns across our nursery, where Beatrice's sketches hung beside the repaired wedding photo, its once cracked frame a testament to our resilience. Nathan, beside me, touched Nora's hand, whispering, she's perfect. In that moment, I made a silent vow, Nora would grow up knowing she was enough, her worth never tied to achievements or someone else's expectations. My journey, sparked by Edward's cruelty and Nathan's defense, had led me here, to a life defined by love, not approval. Eugene had become our sanctuary. Harmony Studio thrived, its trauma survivors workshop now serving 15 students, one of whose songs won a National Youth Arts Prize. The local community rallied around us, and our free music camp expanded to 30 children, funded by a second grant. You're changing lives, Nathan said, as we reviewed footage of the camp's final showcase. His app for sharing student compositions launched, syncing with our mission. My therapy with Dr. Sarah Bennett, now quarterly, had shifted from crisis management to reflection. You've built a self that Edward can't touch, she said in our last session. Motherhood will test you, but you're ready. Panic attacks were rare, my medication a steady support, and I laughed more freely, unburdened by Edward's imagined judgment. Chosen family anchored us. Simon visited often, his relationship with Emily now serious. At Nora's birth, he arrived with a stuffed piano toy, holding his niece with cautious awe. She's got mom's eyes, he said, echoing my thoughts. His therapy had softened him, and our talks grew deeper, untangling decades of sibling distance. I told Dad about Nora, he shared. He sent a card. I nodded, unsurprised but unmoved. Edward's brief apology letter, received weeks ago, remained unanswered in my drawer, a relic of a past I no longer needed to resolve. Aunt Margaret, now a regular in Eugene, knitted Nora a blanket embroidered with stars. Her rift with Edward was permanent, her choice to stand with me a quiet rebellion. Beatrice would adore this, she said, watching Nora sleep. Victoria sent a formal gift for Nora, no note attached. I accepted it without bitterness, her distance a choice I couldn't change. A Christmas gathering solidified our new life. We hosted Simon, Emily, Margaret, and Eugene, friends, musicians, tech colleagues, book club members like Diane. Our home glowed with warmth. Nora passed from loving arms to arms as laughter filled the air. Nathan raised a glass. To Nora. To Clara's strength, and to the family we've chosen. Glasses clinked, and I felt a completeness I'd once sought from Edward. His absence was no longer a wound but a fact, like a distant storm that couldn't touch us. After dinner, I nursed Nora in the nursery, rocking gently. "You'll always be enough," I whispered, the words a promise to her and myself. The journey to this peace hadn't been linear, setbacks still came, like a client's harsh email that briefly revived old doubts, but Dr. Bennett's tools and Nathan's support kept me grounded. A final encounter with Edward came unexpectedly. In January, at a Eugene cafe where I was meeting a Harmony Studio donor. He sat alone, older and frilier, his cane resting against the table. "Clara," he said, spotting me, his voice softer than I remembered. "Dad," I replied, steady. "How's your health?" "Better," he said. "I heard about your daughter. Congratulations." I nodded, waiting for more, but he offered only, "You seem well." I smiled slightly. "I am." The silence was brief, no longer heavy with expectation. I excused myself, joining the donor without a racing heart. Later, I told Nathan, it was just a conversation. No more, no less. He hugged me. That's freedom. Harmony Studios' growth continued. We launched a memoir writing class alongside our songwriting workshop, inviting survivors to share their stories. I spoke at a national arts conference, my voice confident, no longer bracing for Edward's critique. "You're a force," Diane said afterward, now a close friend. Simon, visiting again, shared that Edward was living quietly, his health stable. But his social circle smaller. "He asks about you sometimes," he said. "I think he's starting to see what he lost." I shrugged. "That's his journey." My focus was Nora, our home, our work. I'd stopped checking for Edward's messages months ago, his influence a fading echo. In February, Margaret sent a photo of Beatrice's last painting, a vibrant seascape. "She made this before you were born," she wrote. I hung it in our living room, a reminder of my mother's spirit in me. Nora's first smile, at 8 weeks, felt like Beatrice's blessing. Simon and Emily joined us for a spring picnic, where he admitted, "I'm proposing to Emily soon. You showed me family can be different." His words healed old sibling wounds, our bond now a choice, not a competition. Even Victoria reached out, a brief text, "Congrats on the baby." I replied kindly, leaving the door ajar but not chasing her approval. As spring bloomed, I stood in our backyard, Nora in my arms, watching Nathan grill for friends. Harmony Studio had won a National Community Impact Award, and I'd been invited to advise a new arts program in Portland. My story, once defined by Edward's rejection, was now about creation, love, and purpose. I'd found my true home, not in a place, but in the life we'd built. To us, Nathan toasted, his eyes on me and Nora. I raised my glass, surrounded by chosen family, knowing I'd always been enough. What's your story of breaking free from toxic expectations? Has someone ever stood up for you when you couldn't? Share below, I'd love to hear. If this resonated, please like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for joining my journey. The bravest step is walking toward healing, away from what hurts.